All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Searcher by Tana French. I was blown away by this novel. It's a weird, absurd premise, much like if you want to watch my review of The Likeness, there's also a weird premise in that, but I dug every minute of it. It's kind of a weird premise in this one too, but not as weird or outlandish as The Likeness. But anyway, this is her Dublin Murder Squad series I've got right here. So this is the first book of hers that I've read that is not part of the Dublin. There's probably a Dublin somewhere, but we're talking about Dublin Murder Squad. This is the first non-Dublin Murder Squad mystery that I've read. My God, that's a lot of shit. I'm gonna have to edit out soon. Okay, so we'll take care of that in post. Where were we? Oh, The Searchers. Let's talk about the cover first, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustration. This is kind of cool. I mean, it's just to get a simple font, the nice green wraparound cover of an Irish landscape. Well, maybe the most dull Irish landscape they could have photographed, but whatever. Okay, so what is this about? It's about Cal. He is an ex-Chicago police officer. He's retired to Western Ireland, just because he's like, I got to get out of the rat race of Chicago, the crime of Chicago. I'm gonna just choose a nice, peaceful, idyllic Irish countryside farmhouse, fix it up, and live out my days in peace. Or so he thinks. First of all, the first couple chapters are just about him and this dilapidated farmhouse he's got. It's not a big place, but it's got a lot of landscape around it, which is very beautiful. Some wild animals, a lot of fresh breeze. He's happy with it, even though he has to fix up this dump. And we get this dump described to us in a great detail. And I'm like, I would not fix up the dump. That seems like way too much fucking work. And in fact, when I was a kid, my family moved to an old, dilapidated piece of horse shit farmhouse in southern Utah. And it was a fixer-upper. It was beyond a fixer-upper. It was about to fall over. And I lived in that thing for 4 years, and I hated every moment that I was there. And we would try to fix things up here and there, but you know, the goal when we bought the house was to turn it into a remodel, a fixer-upper, and make it really spiffy. That never happened. I mean, my dad gave up real soon, and everybody gave up, except I kind of fixed up my own bedroom. I bought some carpet, wood paneling, made it look decent, you know, from the cement floor and the plaster, the crumbling plaster. Well, I just nailed up wood paneling over the top of the crumbling plaster, laid some carpet. My bedroom ended up being the nicest place in the house, and I would get pissed when people would come hang out in there just because it was the nicest. I'm like, I'm just a kid, and I paid for all this with my own money, and you ain't coming in here. Get the fuck out. Oh, I was a little bastard. I'm telling you. I know what fixer-uppers are like, and so as I was reading the beginning of this book, I was flashbacking PTSD of my childhood. Anyway, has nothing. Well, it does have a lot to do with the book. So something in the landscape, as he's fixing up his house, there's something in the landscape. He feels like he's being watched. He feels like someone is stalking his house. Turns out, eventually, that he figures out what it is. But in the meantime, before he figures out what it is, we get to learn that he's divorced. His ex-wife is kind of a bee, although there's two sides to every story. This guy, Cal, seems like he might have contributed to the downfall of the marriage. But they had a daughter named, what was her name? Anyway, it was a 20-something-year-old daughter that's living in Seattle. And he's very worried about her living in Seattle all alone. And he calls her a lot, maybe calls her too much, because you can tell the girl's annoyed with all the phone calls she's getting. But anyway, something is stalking, something is going on around his fixer-upper farmhouse, and he just feels a little paranoid. And eventually he finds out that there's a a kid, simply known as the Kid to begin with, for whatever reason, like spying on him, like dodging in and out of the wheat fields and the cornfields and the peat or whatever it is in Ireland. I don't know. The rocks, the boulders, the peat, all of this wavy, grassy shit anyway. You know what I'm talking about. Someone's out there stalking, and he finds out it's a kid. And he doesn't know. He's like, hey, kid, if you're going to spy on me, just come over here. I'm not going to hurt you. Help me remodel this house. And the kid's like, kind of like, I'll do it. I'll help you. And so the kid's just 12 years old. Name is Trey. And this kid named Trey helps him remodel the house, which I'm thinking as I'm reading, I'm like, this is sus. There's an old man, retired cop. Well, he's not old. He's 48. Retired cop, 13-year-old kid, coming to the house every day, inside the house, helping him paint, remodel, cut things with saw blades, everything. And I'm like, this is sus. Can't do that. 48-year-old man, 13-year-old kid, that's recipe for trouble. Now, the author does address this issue. And even Cal is like, this is kind of, I don't know if this, I mean, he's like kind of like, I got a 13-year-old kid in my house every day. What are people going to think? Anyway, the kid eventually asks Cal, you used to be a cop, right? And he's like, yeah. Will you investigate for me the case of my missing brother? I think my older brother's been kidnapped. Will you figure it out? And initially Cal's kind of like, I ain't a cop no more. I don't have the authority to go questioning people. But then he takes the case on anyway, with no authority in Ireland to go do any of this stuff. And this is where the story gets a little preposterous to me, but I still dug it and I still followed along because, I mean, you just don't, a normal citizen, you just don't, even in America, normal citizens just don't go, unless they got a private investigator license or they are the police, they just don't go into town and start interrogating everybody on the missing boy and think that nobody's going to say nothing. I mean, as soon as he interrogates two people, the whole town is abuzz. Like, who is this that isn't asking all these questions about, the boy that's missing? Who is this dude? And even his friend, his neighbor, the one neighborly friend he's got is like, dude, you gotta get that shit out. I mean, and so he's like, yeah, okay, kind of, I'll be more careful. And then he goes right back out and starts questioning more people. Now, one of the things about Trey, the young kid, is I just assumed it was a boy. I assumed wrong. I assumed the gender wrong because about halfway through the book, Trey is revealed to be a young woman, and which complicates things even more. And Cal becomes more hesitant. I kind of figured out who the bad guy was, kind of like page 30. Now maybe y'all won't. Maybe it'll be a surprise and a shock to you, but I was kind of like, I think it's that dude. I think it's that dude right over there. And sure enough, it was that dude right over there. Little predictable, a little bit of a preposterous premise with the old retired cop and the young person. However, just like the likeness, which was even more preposterous, I was riveted. I mean, Tana French is a great writer. I love the way she puts a lot of detail in these books. Details about Ireland, details about the place he's living, details about his life as an ex-cop, the thoughts and feelings and things that are in his head. She really goes into depth with that. And it's just fantastic. It's one of my favorite reads of the year. Despite me kind of, spreading my legs and taking a dump on it, I really absolutely loved this book. So I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. And there's a sequel that's out that I just purchased. And we will be reading that one soon and reviewing it too.